Chapter 6, Part 3. It was hard to find somewhere to sit among the thousand boxes of junk. Guy's hoarding had reached new levels since Mom quit her job. It was his way of getting back at her. The clutter of flea market crap wasn't helping her sanity, and she was never going to get better living there. Hundreds of boxes were piled 6 feet high. The only free space was in the aisles he made to the kitchen, living room, and backyard. It was a human mouse maze that would only encourage her insanity. Guy and I are having problems, Mom said, but I want you boys to know that whatever happens, I still love you. We're not 12, I said. Yeah, and we hate Guy, Michael said. Leave his ass. We found a couple of boxes in front of the TV to sit on while my mom cooked us each a hamburger. Michael and I looked at each other puzzled. Neither of us had any idea what to do. Mom was the only person who ever cared about us, and part of her was on vacation. Her appearance was daunting. She had her hair in rollers and was wearing an inappropriate nightgown that looked more like lingerie as she twitched around the kitchen, mumbling inaudible phrases. We went in the backyard to talk where she couldn't hear us. She needs out of this house, Michael told me. Yeah, where's she gonna go? I asked. Well, she won't go to Kerrville, he said, but her brother in Kansas? For years, Mom wanted to leave Guy, but her meds chained her down. Guy was in control of her money, and all she had was a few credit cards. She didn't have any close friends, and she refused to go to her parents' house in Kerrville. The only place we could think of going was Kansas. We'd never been there, but it's where she grew up, so we figured if we could just get her there, then she'd stop being crazy. For the next few hours, we chilled at her house, watching TV and telling her about our adventure in Austin. She laughed really hard when she got to the part about my stinky feet in the research facility. It was nice to see her laugh at something that wasn't a hallucination. Later that afternoon, the weather report came on and said a massive cold front was coming to South Texas. It was going to get into the 20s with freezing rain. Mom said she'd ask Guy if we could stay the night, but when he got there, he was in a bad mood and told us to leave. We hugged Mom and hit the streets just before the sun went down. It only freezes about 12 nights a year in San Antonio, but this was one of those nights. As soon as we left, the wind started blowing. I knew it'd be crazy to camp in these conditions, so I tried to convince Michael to come with me to the downtown Salvation Army shelter, but he refused. Michael dismissed homeless shelters at all costs. No matter how bad the weather got, he'd rather tough it out. He'd never go to a shelter, and it was useless trying to convince the mule. Before we left Mom's, he grabbed a box of trash bags, a rusty knife, and a half roll of duct tape from her garage. It's all I need to survive, he told me. I went with him to the woods to try to get him to reconsider while he built his fort. Early in the day, I called the Salvation Army from Mom's house and knew I had to be there by 7 p.m. or get turned away. So I helped Michael gather branches for an hour before I got on a bus to downtown. I hadn't been to a homeless shelter since Bakersfield and didn't know what to expect. The only reason I was going on this particular night was because of the weather. I was nervous when I got there, but the resident bums made me feel welcome. I still had to watch my back. A homeless shelter is about as safe as county jail. Keep your head down and don't draw attention to yourself. The AFC Championship game was on, so I feigned an interest in order to avoid conversation. The storm covered the city with a 2-inch thick sheet of ice, and every school, bus, and highway was shut down. I was up all night worrying about Michael. The next morning, I hiked to where I last saw him in the woods, but the only thing I found was an abandoned shelter made of trash bags and duct tape. I shouted out his name, but nobody answered. It was the coldest weather we'd ever seen, and I wasn't sure he survived. I had to get back to the shelter. The temperature hadn't gotten above freezing, so I had to get indoors for another night. The second night wasn't as easy as the first. There wasn't a football game on, so I had a bunch of homeless bums trying to make friends with me. I went back to the woods the next day, and there was no sign of Michael. My brain conjured up an image of his frozen blue body hiding under a meager pile of branches and leaves. Not seeing him in 2 days, I prayed harder, knowing he might not have made it. The National Coalition for the Homeless states on their website that between 1999 and 2002, over 4,000 people died from hypothermia-related deaths in the United States. That means every year, thousands of people run out of money and friends, get stuck in the cold, and die. 3 days after the cold front hit, it stopped raining and finally got above 50 degrees. If Michael survived the first 2 nights, he could easily survive the third. I ditched the shelter and camped in Mom's backyard. If he was going to show up anywhere, it'd be there. The next morning after Guy left for work, I went inside and started watching TV with Mom when Michael busted down the door looking like a Neanderthal. He was covered in dirt, smelled horrible, and his hair was in the shape of a beehive. You're alive, I shouted. Barely, he said solemnly. Mom gave him a hug and said, Michael, you need a bath. What happened? I asked. He sat down, took a deep breath, and said, "The shelter I built out of trash bags held up until the middle of the night, but then it started collecting pockets of rainwater, big pockets." Michael can be a great storyteller when he wants to. As soon as the temperature dropped below freezing, the water froze, the trash bag burst, and half frozen, ice cold rainwater came crashing down on me. I got totally soaked. "What'd you do after that?" I asked. "Well, I had to get out of there," he said. "It was only going to get colder, so I went to that set of apartments and found the first closet door, got inside, stripped naked, and stayed there for 3 days." "What? No way. How'd you go to the bathroom?" I asked. "I just went in the corner of the closet," he said. "Gross," Mom yelled. "Michael, you'll get sick." I didn't have time to worry about that. I had to survive. "Did anyone come by while you were in there?" I asked him. "No, but I did hear voices outside and people walking by." "What would you have done if they opened the door?" "I don't know," he said, "but I pulled my broomstick closer. I pulled my broomstick I was using as a weapon closer in case anyone tried anything. I was naked." Thank God no cleaning lady opened a seemingly harmless closet door, only to find a naked broom-wielding maniac crouched down next to a pile of his own feces. For the next few weeks, the three of us felt like a family when Guy wasn't home. Mom let Michael drive her on errands while I sat in the back making comments and telling jokes. Mom said she was too nervous to drive, and Michael's life usually revolves around having a car. Mom wasn't working, so Michael and I were around her all day and had plenty of time to soften her up and convince her to leave Guy. Something was going to give. Guy got pissed seeing us there every day, so he started bringing home more boxes of useless crap to pile around the house. Mom was losing her space and sanity. Guy even started stacking them in her bedroom, the last room free of clutter. Mom was getting worse, and we knew we had to do something. So one morning, Michael took me in the backyard and said he had a plan. He told me he wanted to make one last attempt to convince Mom to go to Kansas, willingly. He asked me to tug at her heartstrings, and that I had a better chance of convincing her than he did. I went back inside, sat next to Mom on the couch, and told her, and held her hand. "You deserve to live somewhere where both of your sets of twins are welcome, a place where we can all spend Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's what you've always wanted, and it's not too much to ask for, either." She was quiet for a second, and I noticed a tear swell up in her eye. "I want to," she said, "but who's going to take care of me?" "We're going to take care of you," Michael shouted as he stormed in. "I don't want to talk about it," she said. "Michael, can you still drive me to do laundry later?" "Yes, I can," Michael answered. 20 minutes later, Michael took me in the garage and let me in on what he'd been conjuring. He was anxious, covered in sweat, and was carrying a roll of painter's tape and a miniature baseball bat. "I wasn't even going to tell you," he said, "but I don't want you trying to get all hero, get in a fight with things, and mess things all up for us." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Kansas," he said. "We're going one way or another." "You heard Mom, she's not ready," I said. "She doesn't know what she wants," he screamed. "She'll say that for years until she dies." "Hey, watch your mouth, asshole," I told him. "Listen, I have a plan, but I need your help," he said. "What's your plan?" I asked. "When you ain't got nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose," he said, quoting Dylan. I knew his harebrained scheme had little chance of succeeding, and even though I half-assed tried to talk him out of it, I was totally down. "I don't know," Michael said. "This is basically illegal." "It's not illegal if you go along with it. You don't have to do anything besides keep your mouth shut. I need your help," he said. "Why do you need my help?" I asked. "I need you to let me tie you up and put you in the trunk." "What? No way, I'm claustrophobic." "Come on," he said. "After a few miles, you can just come tossing in through the back seat. Once she sees you all tied up, she'll know we're serious." "Quit saying we," I told him. "What are you going to do when she starts crying?" I asked. "How are you going to stop her gas? How are we going to eat?" "Nothing she can do about it," he said. "I'll fill the tank before we leave, and we won't have to stop again till Abilene. By then it'll be too late." I know Michael better than anyone. He has a noble sense of right and wrong, but he goes about getting justice with a vigilante's mentality. I let Michael wrap painter's tape around my wrist, ankles, and mouth. It was itchy and ripped patches of hair off my head. Then he walked me outside, and I hopped in the back of the car. I tried to get into the trunk, but he emptied Mom's closet and shoved all of her clothes with the hangers still on them, and there was hardly any room. He kept poking me with the bat and screaming, "Hurry up, before the neighbors see." Then he slammed the trunk door down on the top of my head. Suddenly, I was in complete darkness with next to no air, getting stabbed in the side by stingy metal clothes hangers. A few minutes later, I heard Michael and Mom get in the car. "Where's Gregory?" she asked. "He's nearby," Michael said, chillingly. By the time we gone 2 blocks, I was having a panic attack and needed out of that truck. I kicked at the back seat until the latch gave way and I spilled into the cab. Mom swung her head around the passenger seat and screamed in terror at the sight of her bound son. "Michael, what have you done?" she screamed. "You didn't want to do it the easy way," he said. "This is the hard way." "Michael, turn around," Mom screamed. "Untie your brother." "I'm not untying anyone," he yelled. Then she reached around the back seat and ripped the tape off my mouth. "Arr, untie me, bastard! Stop this car!" I screamed. "Nobody's going anywhere," he yelled while stepping on the gas. Then I ripped my arms apart, got behind Michael, and put him in his chokehold as he swerved Mom's little red Suzuki in and out of I-35. Finally, Mom started crying, and Michael had to pull over. He couldn't do it, not with her crying. He turned the car around and took us back to Guy's house. 3 of us went inside without saying a word. I still had painter's tape dangling from my wrists and ankles. Mom threw her purse on the kitchen table and locked herself in her bedroom. A few seconds later, I heard the front door slam, an engine start, and a car peel away. Mom heard the same thing, and we both ran to see that Michael had stolen her car, cell phone, and one of her credit cards. 5 minutes later, he called the house and told her not to call the cops, but he'd stolen the car and was on his way to Kansas. If she wanted the car, her cell phone, and all her clothes back, she'd have to come to Kansas. Mom told Michael to be careful before hanging up the phone and laughing louder than I'd heard her laugh in years. A few minutes later, she called me into her room. "So, you want to go to Kansas?" she asked. "I was thinking we could stay with my brother, Uncle Jay." "Mom, we don't have any money. What about Guy?" I asked. "I have credit cards," she said. "Guy can't take those. Michael only took the gas card. Don't worry about Guy. I'm leaving him." "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "I want to live somewhere where all of my children are welcome. I don't want you boys worrying about being homeless." I'd spent 6 months sleeping outside, but I was finally going to have a place to live in Kansas. That was chapter 6 of the book Gonzo Education. You can get it for free on Kindle. It's like $5 or $6 on Amazon. Go ahead and order it now, and I'll go ahead and autograph it for you for free. If you liked my reading of it, go to the Amazon and put something. Click the thumbs up button, and click the subscribe button. And thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. And peace. Aloha. Hook 'em horns.